Hello and welcome to Around the Region. I'm your host, Whitney Stinson. On the program tonight, Battle River Victim Services is giving you a chance to give back to your community. After decades of service, their volunteer list is coming up a little short. But first, we're going one-on-one with an FBI profiler. We're going to take a look inside his mind on location right now on Around the Region. Thank you so much for joining us. Here with me now is Clint Van Zandt. He is a hostage negotiator, an FBI profiler, retired now. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Good to be with you. Good to be in this part of the world.
Definitely. We're catching you just after the 2011 Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, which is always a really big event here in Lloydminster. Definitely, I know that a lot of people enjoyed your speech. You could see people hanging on to your words, and you had a big lineup afterwards. What did you think of the crowd?
Well, you know, it's exciting. I think it kind of builds itself when you've got upwards of 400 people here. And they were really interested. I mean, this is Saturday morning. You got to be interested. You don't get up. You don't volunteer and say, "Oh, I think I'll go to this breakfast." You know? So I think this has been a wonderful community event, number one. And number two, from a Christian perspective, it's just been a chance for your religious community to come together and say, how do you balance life and a concept of Christianity? How do you interrelate those together and make it work? And I think what I was here to share was, as an FBI profiler, hostage negotiator, a Vietnam veteran, how do you go through all of those things and not lose it? I mean, I've known profilers, negotiators. We've lost them psychologically. They just, you know, when you look into the darkest depths of a man's soul, it's hard not to carry that view about life itself. But there has to be something else. In my case, a very strong family, a very strong wife, and a very strong religious belief that in my situation, you pray about something, then you go out and do it, and you know you've done everything you can do. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
For people who aren't familiar, what does an FBI profiler do?
Yeah. Unlike you see on television many times where you've got men and women in the basement of some secret government building holding hands, seance style, waiting for the smoke to rise from the center of the table and say who the serial killer is, what a profiler actually does, and profiler is kind of a television term, it just catches on. The FBI would call one a criminal investigative analyst. Profile is television, but that's what sells books and movies.
Right.
But basically your job is to look at the elements of a crime, to look at how a crime was committed. Let's say hypothetically a terrible murder has taken place, and you look at the injuries sustained by the victim. You look at what happened to him and her, what weapon was used, where did it take place, what was the interaction between the offender and the victim, and based upon the totality of the evidence that you see, and what you're really looking for is evidence of human behavior. What does that suggest in the entire world? For example, I'm from America. We've got 320 million Americans, plus or minus. Well, how do you narrow that down? As a profiler, you say, well, I think this was a male who did it. Well, you've eliminated half the population group then, you know.
Right.
But then if you say, I think it was a male, I think it was a white male, I think he was probably between 20 and 30, probably no more than high school educated, lived in the community, lived in the neighborhood, interacted with the victim, then you shrink that down so the real police, the investigators, be it RCMP or who's ever doing that crime, they can come out. We've narrowed down a potential group of suspects, then it's their job to go find the bad guy.
Awesome. We're going to talk more about justice on the other side of this break.